Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we still keep it to 5 minutes, of course, but we are going to pick out the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, which is one that's maybe flying under the radar a little bit, and our favourite story. So let's jump into it. Biggest story of the week. What was it for you?
Well, for me, I think it has to be the market. It's at a 5 or 6 month high. What's not to get excited about that? Commonwealth Bank, one of the biggest companies in the country, it hit a 52-week high yesterday, Friday. Why is all this going on? Because there are signs that the US Fed will slow down the pace of interest rate hikes. Reserve Bank of Australia has already done that. We found out this week that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand is not going to do that. Really, it was sort of the week that investors and economists glimpsed light at the end of the interest rate tunnel. Therefore, markets reacted, equities jumped, and bonds came off a bit. So really was quite a significant week, and probably for mine, the biggest story of the week.
Yeah, it is a big one. For me, it was the big week in Parliament. The industrial relations reform is in the Senate. Concessions are being made there to get it through, including lifting the threshold for small businesses under the legislation from 15 to 20 employees, which should exempt another 500,000 businesses from being subject to multi-employer bargaining. Also heading to the Senate now is the legislation for the National Anti-Corruption Commission. This was one of the key election promise, which is now passed the lower house. On Friday, the report was released into former Prime Minister Scott Morrison being secretly sworn into ministries during the pandemic, with a recommendation from former High Court Judge Virginia Bell that the law be changed so it can't happen in secret again. The bill to expand childcare subsidies has passed. The government did a deal with crossbenchers to exempt electric vehicles from fringe benefits tax, so people buying an electric car could save tens of thousands of dollars there. And Canberra says that China is willing to re-engage in regular high-level military dialogue. That's another big breakthrough. Put it all together, that's a big week in politics.
Sure is.
All right, most remarkable story. I think for me this week, it was everything that's going on with Qantas at the moment, because you had the airline saying that the expected pre-tax profit for the current half year has risen to $1.45 billion, which isn't too bad at all, considering it lost more than $6 billion during the pandemic. But spare a thought for the travellers who have been forking out very, very high fares over the last little while and will be doing so for some time to come, up to $900 for a full-priced fare from Melbourne to Sydney. Even the discount fares are about 50% higher than they were earlier this year. At least Qantas's performance has improved. Last month, 74% of services arrived and left on time. The cancellation rate is pretty low, 2.2%. Could be a bit of turbulence ahead, though, Sean. Cabin crew have voted for industrial action, maybe stopping work for 24 hours, withdrawing from boarding responsibilities, etc. Could be a little bit chaotic at Christmas, I think.
Hope not, but you're probably right.
All right, the sleeper story, one that could be a bigger story further down the track. What was it for you?
For me, it was AGL Energy's decision to close its Torrens Island B gas power station in South Australia in the middle of 2026. Now, it blamed the new interconnector cable being built between South Australia and New South Wales. That cable will carry renewable energy, about $20 billion worth of renewable energy, making the gas power station, the Torrens Island B station, uneconomic. What's a bit different this time is that it shows there's a bunch of energy assets out there that just can't compete with renewables. That's a good thing, though it will mean higher energy costs. In the case of Torrens Island B, the technology is so old, it doesn't allow the facility to ramp up or down to match demand. Fascinating story, fascinating economics within the gas power station industry.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, on to the favourite story of the week. For me, it's the fact that this is such a terrific time of year for retailers and a terrific time of year for people looking for a bargain like me, because we are wedged at the moment between the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday sales, which is a 4-day online shopping bonanza. It's expected to bring in, would you believe, about $6.2 billion in sales. My favourite story for 2 reasons. Great time to start your Christmas shopping, but it's also hugely significant for the retail sector because it's the start of the all-important Christmas retail season. Last year, Black Friday was actually bigger than Boxing Day. In some categories like recreation, fashion and liquor and electronics, it can be up to 50% of annual sales over the next, say, 6 or so weeks. This is big, and it's expected to even be as big this year, which is remarkable considering the rising cost of living, Sean.
Yeah, great story. My favourite was a fairly serious one. Last week, the chief executive of Vicinity Centres, the property group, Grant Kelly, quit. It emerged this week that occurred just days after receiving first and final warning after a sexual harassment complaint against him was investigated. Now, according to the Financial Review, there was an investigation into the sexual harassment complaint and also another investigation which found a high degree of workplace dysfunction in senior executive ranks stemming from Mr. Kelly's behaviour. The initial report, concluded earlier this month by an independent investigator, upheld the allegations against Mr. Kelly, including that he made intrusive comments about a senior female executive's attractiveness and boasted to her about his sexual conquests. Why is this my favourite story? Because of the courage of the woman that came forward and said, okay, Mr. Kelly quit last week, but we didn't get the real story. She told the real story this week. It actually puts question marks over the behaviour of the board of Vicinity Centres, but she came out and had the courage to take on the CEO and the board and say this is the real story behind why Mr. Kelly quit. I can't imagine how difficult all that must have been, let alone the original harassment. Bravo.
Yeah, well said. There we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Don't forget to check out our new podcast as well, How Do They Afford That?, featuring Canna Campbell, the founder of Sugar Mama TV, all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. This week's episode is all about side hustles. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is The Fast 5 by Fear and Greed.